Okay, so I'm so excited. This is called Tuesday Talk. And people who are on this live with our guest speaker tonight qualified. They'd worked so hard. It was like crazy hard. I actually had Jamie on with the phone with me last night, 11 o'clock last night, her time, trying to qualify for this. So y'all really worked hard. And we are missing a couple of people due to other conflicts. So they're going to get the recording. But Alison Wallwork, this is Alison Wallwork. And she's a wife, mother, author, speaker, encourager, pastor, friend, mentor, and sometimes my daughter too. I love her. She's been in ministry for 20 years and she is passionate about seeing people truly connect to the heart of God and his plan. Andrea, can you unmute everybody? Yeah. And his plan for their lives. She has walked through painful times. And when you read one of her books, you'll see that, and had her faith shaken to the core, but she has learned to lean into the promises of God to find strength and hope. Alison loves seeing others experience the freedom a life with Christ brings. She communicates practically with personal honesty, transparency, and a love for the Word of God. And she's hilarious, because she tells these stories about her 4 boys. She's written 2 books, Living Freedom, Losing a Spiritual 10 Pounds, and Mom Life. And she and her husband, Arian, who we love him, just like our son, we love him too. She and her husband have 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 energetic, athletic, fun-loving boys between the ages of 8 and 14. She started having them when she was 12. So I want to introduce you guys to the one, the only. I adore this woman. I just would go to anywhere to listen to her speak. I can't wait until she's like on television and all that. But this is the amazing, awesome, and amazing Alison Wallwork.
Thank you. Thank you. Joanna gives the best introduction ever of anyone. And so thank you for that, Joanna. And I am honored to be on with all of you ladies. I know I've had the privilege of being around Andrea several times too, but I don't know if I've personally met the rest of you, or did you say they weren't at your house, Joanna, the last time? Okay. Okay. Somebody was. All right. You guys are muted. So, but I'm excited to be on here with you ladies today, because I know Joanna pretty well, and I know that she wears, about 100 different hats. And I would imagine that the rest of you wear several hats too. And I guess just by like a quick show of hands, how many of you do Mary Kay in conjunction with something else? Like, meaning, okay, so maybe you don't have another outside job, but you're like a mom and you do Mary Kay, or a wife and you do Mary Kay, or you have an outside job, another stream of income. Okay. So a lot of hands there. Yes. And, I think it's so common for us women to wear a lot of different hats and to do a lot of multitasking throughout our day, and to find ourselves trying to, be successful and make the most of what we're doing, as we have a lot of different things that we're doing. And so when Joanne had reached out to me about this, what I would share, what just came to mind, and I know I had put it in a little video, so I think you probably had seen it, but just what came to mind is that, I think so many times, I'm sure you've heard it, I know I've heard it so many times through the years, we just got to have a good balance. It's just all about balance. It's finding a good balance. And, I don't know how you feel about that statement. I always feel just a little bit stressed out by that statement, because I just feel like, where do you learn what that balance is, or when you figure it out, you get into a season where you feel like, okay, I finally have everything balanced right now. Something inevitably new pops up in your life, and then all of a sudden it's off balance again, and you're trying to find that perfect balance. So I just always felt frustrated by that statement. And I looked around, and so many women that I was seeing seemed frustrated and overwhelmed and exhausted and running around like crazy. So I just thought there has to be something better than finding a perfect balance, because nothing stays the same. We're constantly moving and going and doing different things. And so, I came across, I wanted to share a verse, because this verse is like, the Bible is my go-to for encouragement, but this verse opened up a whole new concept for me in the difference between balance and rhythm. And, I had shared it in that little snippet of a video that I prefer the word rhythm, and maybe some say like tomato, you're talking about the same thing, possibly, but I feel like I'm a visual person, and the visual of getting into a rhythm, because a rhythm is not, it moves, a rhythm moves. And so some seasons you're maybe leaning more this way, and other seasons you're leaning more this way, but you're in a rhythm. And so you're able to accomplish the things that are on your heart, that stir inside of you, your passions. And it normally is, I'm looking around at women who would say it's all more than one thing. There's more than one thing that we have our focus on. And so how do we do all those things well? I really feel it's not, let's stack it up to see what the right rhythm is. Or balance is, it's let's get into a good rhythm so that we can flow in all these different areas and they don't suffer. And if something is suffering, okay, then we just readjust and we continue flowing. And so I'm just going to share this verse with you. It's Matthew 11, 28, and it's in the Message. I love the way the Message, it paraphrases it. And it's Jesus speaking, and he says, "Are you tired, worn out, burned out on religion? Come to me, get away with me, and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest." Already I was like, I love that. Okay. But then he says, "Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me and you'll learn how to live freely and lightly." And I just absolutely love the way that that's worded. I love that phrase, rhythms of grace. And although he talks about rest, I also love that he says, walk with me and work with me. So it wasn't that he was saying, just sit around and do nothing, or even just sit around and pray all day long. It was walk with me and work with me. There's motion going on there. There's things getting done. There's things getting accomplished. So how do we do that in a way where we aren't left burned out at the end? Because that's how we start. Are you burned out? Are you tired? Are you overwhelmed? Are you exhausted? We don't have to look very far to see women who fit that category. Sometimes it's just in our own mirror and we're like, yes, that's me today, because we've probably gotten out of rhythm in some area. And so, I know Joanna read my bio and those different things that, I've gotten to be a part of and worn different hats. Like you all raised your hand and said, the different things you focus on. For me, it's been, my marriage, it's been my children. And then professionally, vocationally, I've been in ministry for 20 years. We've been involved in ministry, my husband and I. And for me, that's looked different in different seasons. With having kids, I've been able to write 2 books. I have a long list of other books I'd love to, write, and things that I've worked on. I'm finishing a degree right now. And it's, I'm not saying any of that to say like, okay, this is what I have going on. I'm saying that to say we all have a lot of things going on. We're all busy, but those things that we feel passionate about, those things that we want to accomplish, it is doable to do these things without getting so stressed out that we want to just quit everything. Because I'm sure we've all been in those moments too, where everything feels so stressful and we just feel like, okay, forget all of it. I want to do nothing but just sit down and, eat chocolate or whatever it is that you do. And I guess I liken it because I do a lot of laundry. So I feel like this analogy fits my life very well. But I liken it to, because it's something I tend to do. I tend to overfill my washing machine because I always have a lot of laundry to do. Yes. Okay. Deanna, am I saying your name right? You do as well. And I will stuff it in as full as I can possibly get it, thinking like, hopefully maybe that's like one less load to do. And it's fine until what? It's fine until it hits the spin cycle, right? Because when it hits the spin cycle, it gets really loud and it starts feeling like your whole house is going to fall down, or at least your washing machine is going to end up in a different room. And anytime I've done that in my husband's home, I always see this look of frustration on his face, because he's like, you're going to break our washing machine if you keep overfilling it. Can you just, fill it the right amount? And I'm like, yeah, right. I just, a few extra things just slipped in there this time. And it's all been like fine and good until actually, I think 2 years ago, our washing machine did break. And I was like, maybe I do need to be a little bit more careful with this. But the thing is I realized just one day in my laundry room, this epiphany of my own life and how I very often do that to myself as well. I'm not just putting in there what should be in there. I tend to take on all these other things, dump it all in until I'm running so ragged that anybody within the vicinity of me knows I'm freaking out because it's too much. And so I've spent a lot of time, trying to figure out in my adult years, okay, I have these dreams in my heart. I've got these things that I want to do and I want to accomplish. So how does all of this fit together? How does all of this work? And in finding out for me, what has been the game changer for me is it really narrows down to your schedule. It really narrows down to scheduling out the things that you want to do and recognizing that one of two things is going to set your schedule. It's either going to be set by pressure or it's going to be set by priorities. That is the two things that are going to determine your schedule. It's either going to be your priorities are going to set your schedule, or it's going to be the pressure that you feel in the moment, or, the pressures of the expectations. And so when we start to think of pressure, there's, again, you don't have to look very far to know where you're feeling pressure from. Sometimes it is other people's expectations. Sometimes that's even within your own family. Sometimes it's comparison because we're looking around at other people and where they're at or what they have or how they're navigating, their journeys. And we take on this unnecessary pressure. Sometimes it's in social media when we look around and we think like, how in the world does that woman, get that done? I'll share just a vulnerable season of my life after I had my fourth son. And I, had these dreams. I had one book out at the time, but I had these dreams of writing another book and just doing some different personal accomplishments that I wanted to be able to, have done. And sometimes when I'm in the middle of the night feeding my son or up with him, I would get on social media and I would scroll. And I had followed some of these other women who were doing things that I wanted to be doing, and I would follow them. And in that season of my life, that wasn't healthy for me because I would come across some achievement that they had done. And let me tell you, just in all honesty, I would Google them to find out how old they were and how many kids they had. And I would start rationalizing, okay, well, I'm not there yet because, this, and this. And then I thought, how crazy am I that I am spending time doing this? But it was this pressure, this immense pressure that I was feeling from comparison. And I realized, what? That is not going to set my schedule. I do not need to be up at 3:00 in the morning, spending an extra half an hour because I'm trying to Google all these people who are successful and figure out why I'm not, that just was robbing my time. But social media can lead us on those really, stinky trails that we just think like, oh, that doesn't happen to me, but we know it does sometimes, So anyways, that pressure that comes from comparison, that pressure that comes from other people's expectations and just sometimes our own desires when we haven't prioritized them. It just all feels like I want to do all these things, but it's just one big chaotic mess. And so setting your priorities takes being intentional. It takes intentionality to set your priorities. And so, that's what I would just encourage you to do. I think the way that we stay in a healthy rhythm in our life, the way that we are able to, do multiple things well without other things suffering, the things that we feel are stirring in our heart to do, but our marriages don't suffer because of it. Our children don't suffer because of it. Our own mental and emotional health doesn't suffer because we're pursuing the dreams and the desires that we have in our heart happens when we set our priorities and when we're honest about our priorities. And so I would, again, I'm a visual person, so I write these things out. I write out what are my priorities? What do I want to make sure is happening? I write to-do lists all the time. I really believe in scheduling. I think that we have to be intentional with our time because we have 24 hours a day and that's it. And if we want to accomplish things, we have to be intentional with our time. Now, I don't have I'm not able to schedule out my time to a T because, Joanna mentioned I do have 4 boys and they are in, my schedule revolves around their schedule a little bit, but I will set like a to-do list on a daily. I have a daily to-do list, and then I have a weekly to-do list. Things that I know sometime over the course of that week I want to get done, and I'll put it on a certain day. But if it doesn't happen that day, then okay, I'll move it to a different day. But then each day I look at that to-do list so I can mark things off, because it keeps me on track. And that's how I'm able to schedule out my time. When I wrote that first book, Living Freedom, Losing a Spiritual 10 Pounds, I wrote it during nap time. My mother-in-law would come. I'd had my third son. My mother-in-law would come and take my 2 toddlers. And while my third son napped, I would sit down and write. And I would think, I know that I at least have 30 minutes each time, so I'm going to sit down and write. But by the time my mom life devotional came around, I needed 30 minutes to just like decompress. So that strategy didn't work for that season. But what can we do in those 30-minute blocks? Right now, I'm sometimes this summer, I'm sitting at sports practices where my kids are doing a sports camp or a sports practice, and I don't need to be as engaged. It's not a game. So I bring my stuff that I can get done during that 45 minutes or during that hour, and I'm doing it. Maybe that's sending some emails. Maybe that's making some phone calls. Maybe that's coming up with, for me, actually last week, I just outlined a new devotional that I want to write. Like I just did an outline for it. And I took about 30 to 40 minutes to kind of outline that, because it had just kind of been up in here, and I just, did it. And so setting those priorities, what are those priorities for your family? What are those priorities in your marriage? What are those priorities with your kids? What are those priorities with your business? What are the goals that you have to reach? What are the things that you're trying to reach this week, this month, this year? Line them out. Don't just let them, sometimes they just stay in here and then we forget, or something else gets in the way and we think it's the end of the week now. And we think, oh gosh, I really wanted to focus on that, but we didn't write it down. We didn't schedule it out. And so what happens? Pressure, the pressure of life, the pressure of busyness. Something popped up. Somebody asked me to come do something. Somebody asked if I wanted to be a part of this. And because I hadn't scheduled out these other things I needed to get done, I said yes, maybe, to all these other things, which then in turn was a no to my priorities. And, that's a really big shift there too. If you have a hard time saying no, I would encourage you to realize that when you say no to one thing, you're able to say yes to what you need to be saying yes to. So you can say no to what might come at you as, unneeded pressure that you don't need to pick up at that moment, so that you can say yes to your priority and to getting your priority done and accomplished. So if I have this set out for the week and I know it's very important to me that I make time for this week, and something else pops up, then I have a much easier time saying, you know what, I would love to do that, but I cannot fit that into my week because I really need to get this priority done. And so just as busy women, that's the way that I have found a rhythm, is by, lining it out, setting it out. And then right now my schedule is so busy being a taxi cab driver for my, my kids' different schedules, that every night before I go to bed, I look at for the next day, I have it lined out. I pull up my calendar, I pull up my to-do list, and I'm like, okay, I need to, it's not always that busy. But I'm in a season right now where it is very busy. And so I'm living by that, because I want to make sure that my priorities aren't just flying out the window. And there are going to be some seasons, for you are women that are running a business. So there's going to be some seasons or some times, maybe within the month, weeks, that tend to be a little bit more, business heavy than maybe heavy on some other things. So for me in ministry for all these years, there's certain seasons of the year where I know, hey, this is going to be a little bit more ministry heavy because we're coming up on a big, women's event that I'm running, or we're coming up on, the Christmas time of year, which can tend to be heavier, for a church or things like that. And I'll powwow with my family and we'll talk about it. Like, hey, for the next couple of weeks, this is going to look a little bit busier, but I'm going to be present and intentional in these moments. But then in these moments, while maybe you're off doing that, you're going to see me with my computer, and it's because I'm getting this done, while you're getting that done. Something I want my kids to see me doing is I want them to see me chasing my dreams. I want them to see what it looks like as they grow up, to have goals, to have dreams, and to accomplish them, because I want them to accomplish those things all throughout their lives as well. And so it isn't that I don't pay attention to them, but there might be certain times I need to get something accomplished, and I'm going to make that up time-wise. Maybe that evening we're going to sit down and read together, or we're going to play a game together, but I'm going to take that 30 minutes and I'm going to get on my computer and I'm going to finish what needs to be done in that 30 minutes. So there are some seasons where it's maybe a little bit heavier one way than the other. But again, that's that rhythm, and if you feel it, and I've felt it before, we all feel it sometimes, maybe one thing is suffering a little bit more than another, then reevaluate. I think our priorities need to be very consistently reevaluated. Maybe it's on a weekly basis or maybe a monthly basis. What are my priorities again this month, and are they being reflected in my schedule? Inventory is to look back over your schedule for the week. Were my priorities reflected in my schedule? Did I have some family time? Did I have, good quality time with my husband? Did I have, time that I put towards my business or put towards, my passion, whatever that vein is? Did I put intentional quality time? And if something was off, then let's retweak it. And I think just being honest with yourself in those things, of course, we're not always going to get it perfect, but that ability to do some self-inventory and retweak is what enables us, when people look and they're like, how are you doing this? Or how did you do that this week? Or, even you're in the middle of my screen, but I'm not sure, but you were just sharing about upselling, and Joanna had just said, how did you do that this week? You're able to say, well, this is how, because you're able to look back and say, I prioritized things. I set a schedule. I made a plan. And those things all seem so basic, but I think we all know that when we don't intentionally do that, our lives just get chaotic. And then we aren't able to meet our goals. And so, when you're planning out your priorities, that acronym SMART, you set your SMART goals. You want to be able to have it be, so for me, I do a note section in my phone so I can check it off, but you want it to be something that you can track your progress with. Again, so at the end of the week, at the end of the month, you see what you're accomplishing or what might need to be retweaked because it's not being accomplished and it's just sitting there on your to-do list over and over and over, and you're never finding time for it. A statement that has changed my life is this: you have time for what you make time for. And I remind myself of this all the time. I do not ever say, I just don't have time, because anytime those words come out of my mouth, it's like this loudspeaker goes off. You have time for what you make time for. And that really is the truth. We will make time for the things we really want to get done. We tend to, figure out a time for that. Right now I'm reading this really great book and I've been up like almost till 1 a.m. in the morning because I just can't put it down, but I made time to do that because it's something I want to do, whereas other times we just use it as an excuse. Well, I just don't have time for this, but we have time for what we make time for. So really, I would challenge you, if you struggle saying that, I would challenge you to say, I didn't make time for that. Because when you say that, you really have to own that. You really have to realize, like, okay, why didn't I make time for it? Either it's not important to me or something else is robbing me of my valuable time and I need to do some inventory on that. I think it's just really like we have to get honest with ourselves and not allow ourselves to have that excuse of, oh, I just don't have time. We have 24 hours in the day and, it's up to us how we're going to spend it. And so you have time for what you make time for. So make time for your priorities. That would be my encouragement. Make time for your priorities, because that is when your life gets into a rhythm where you can be accomplishing all of the different areas in your life, and then be willing to reevaluate that on a regular basis, to take inventory on a regular basis and make tweaks as needed. And that's, for me, that's where I have found peace and sanity. and just the ability to focus on the variety of things that, wind up on my plate. And so, looking at this screen with all these women that have a variety of things on your plate, that's what I would just encourage you to recognize. Is it priorities or is it pressures that are driving my life? Because if it's pressures, then I'm really not accomplishing things. I'm just I'm just on spin cycle. I'm just, going like crazy and everything's just shaken and it's crazy and it's chaotic, but there's not a whole lot being accomplished. But if it's priorities, setting your schedule, reflected in your schedule, then there's a sense of fulfillment. Even though you might be busy, you might not have a ton of extra time, there's a fulfillment in knowing my time is going to what I want my time to go to. And I'm able to focus, even if it's just little bits at a time. It might be on a slower time frame. But whatever it is, I'm putting time towards this. And so every step forward is a step forward. And I'm moving towards completion and accomplishment. That's just what I wanted to share there. It's not, how do I figure out, we want to compartmentalize, and just really honestly, as women, so much just intersects and intertwines. So get into that rhythm with your priorities and just be in control of your time.
Hey, you guys, do you see why I love this woman? So is there anything that you want to take away? You want to share with Alison that's your takeaway? Or do you have a quick question for her? Because like she said, 4 boys and they're probably waiting on dinner. Any questions?
Yes.
Okay, Dee.
Well, question and a comment. So the dishwasher analogy really hit me, because I realized not only am I guilty of that, my partner's also guilty of that. And so I have something to tell him when we get home, or at least discuss with him. It's because our lives are becoming insane. And I mean, we want to start a family at some point too. So I'm just like, if I'm having issues now with like my life, when I have a family, it's going to be chaos. And I'm just thinking, my mom had an issue with raising 3 kids, and I don't know how the heck you did it with 4 and how you're still doing it with 4, but you just have a smile on your face, and it's beautiful and magical. And I love your energy. And, the fact that you're spending time with us, it's for us to be a priority in your life, that's beautiful. And it kind of brings tears to my eyes. Like, it's an incredible accomplishment that you have. Everything that you've overcome in your life is a huge accomplishment. And I just cannot thank you enough for pouring into us, taking valuable time out of your schedule for that. I'm grateful. I'm extremely grateful.
Well, thank you, Dee. Thank you. And I think, that's one of the biggest wins, is when we recognize, okay, things are out of whack. They're out of rhythm. So, talking with, your significant other and sitting down and figuring out, okay, how do we get a little bit, into a better rhythm here? And really that's one of the biggest things sometimes, is because our priorities stay like, well, I know what I want, but it just gets so jumbled. But to really be intentional about, maybe it's over dinner or a date night or something of, okay, let's line out our priorities here. What's, for the next 6 months, or maybe for the year, what is, if you're going towards starting a family or whatever it is, how do we kind of line out these priorities? That's a big step in then being able to do it more on a daily basis and seeing the results of that in your life. But thank you for sharing. Nice being on here with you tonight.
And Alison, don't you think that it does require a little prepping? Like, I'm real big on telling everybody, be proactive, not reactive.
Yes.
And, it's hard for me to say no, but, to be intentional and to be organized and be proactive and not just react to all the stuff that comes your way.
Yes. Yep. Because we react to pressure. Yep.
And I think we give into it, and then we go, wait a minute, what happened? I missed this. I missed this. I missed this. And you're not filling your own cup. So I want to put a little pressure on Alison, that maybe in a couple of months, I've heard her speak on the comparing yourself to others. And we did a whole Bible study that centered around that. And I'm going to tell you guys something. Every week I came home and I cried, because I realized how much damage I was doing to myself in comparing myself to other people. And I don't do the Facebook scroll thing. I probably need to do more of that. I'd know what was going on in the world, but just constantly comparing myself to other people. And what I realized in this study and listening to Alison is all of that stemmed from my parents comparing me to my sister, and I always fell short. And so my entire adult life, I spent trying to measure up. And what Alison has taught me through a long time of her mentoring me is God made me this way, and it is more than enough. It's the way he wants me. And so she is, y'all, I'm telling you, you're going to be so excited if you win her book. And if you don't win her book, go on Amazon and buy it. But, and I didn't know you were already working on another devotional. I hope it's for like women of a more interesting age.
It's for women in general.
Okay. All right. So anything else? Anybody else want to add anything real quick, or just ask a question, or just tell Alison what you learned from what she just said?
I'd just like to say thanks for taking your time and sharing with us, because I do feel what you're saying. You know, sometimes it's a roller coaster, and for us, like, it can be, you just hang on some days. You know, it's not always perfect, but you have to hold on and keep going. And sooner or later, God turns it back around and brings it back to where you need to be. But I think you definitely have times of really busy, and then you have times where it's a little bit more quiet, where you can sit down and reflect on what your goals are, what you need to do. And that is important.
Yeah.
That's good. Anybody else?
Thank you.
I want to let them.
Just, you have time for what you make time for. It's such a great quote. I'm gonna keep that, and I think it's so true. And how you said, if you really want to see what you see as priority, let's look at your schedule for the last week or last month. Thank you. These were just powerful. I'm so thankful we're recording.
Okay. Well,
Thanks for having me on.
you guys, Alison has, okay, you have 2 of your devotionals and 2 of your spiritual 10 pounds. I always say 20 because I feel like I lost 20 pounds with that one.
I have one of each here, but yes, I have
Okay,
them.
so we're going to do 4 giveaways. The first one is Andrea. Andrea, which book do you want?
I don't know. Which one do I need?
Well, the mom devotional is awesome. And the
Um,
spiritual 10 pounds is awesome.
I think I need the spiritual 10 pounds. It sounds really intriguing.
Okay. All right. So we'll have that
Thank
one for you.
you.
And y'all will get these when you come to my house in July. Okay, let's do another one. And also I put the 2 girls who had stuff that couldn't do this. I put them in. Sayonara. Sayonara is Brazilian, but she reads English. So Sayonara, do you want the spiritual 10 pounds or the mom devotional?
The first one,
The 10 pounds. Okay.
yes.
I
I
want to
hope
tell you
I
guys.
lose 10 pounds too.
Okay. I have given the mom
No
devotional.
guarantees.
I've given
Oh,
the mom
please.
devotional to every new mom. I love that. Okay, so the other 2 are going to be the mom's devotional. Dee is going to get one of the mom's devotionals.
Gee, we can swap after you read one hour.
There you go. I love that. And then
It's a
one
sign.
It's a sign.
Amy,
In preparation.
Amy, you won the mom's devotional.
Yay.
Yay. Well, y'all worked hard to earn this time with Alison, and she's such a blessing. And just imagine, I have access to her all the time. You would think I would be a better person, but I do have access to her all the time. But
You
thank
are an
you,
amazing
Alison.
person.
Okay.
But if you
and-
guys are on social media, I'm on there too, and would love to connect with other women that are doing stuff. So
yeah.
you can
Let
find
me
me on
let
there.
me put your here so that y'all can see Allison's name. It's 1 L in Alison, and then it's 2 L's in Wallwork. Got it? So if y'all want to look her up, her books are on Amazon, and they are amazing. And like I said, every new mommy that is in my life, one of the gifts I give them when they have their baby is I'm like, you got to read this book. It's so good. It is so good. So thank you. And on 3, we're all going to show Alison how we say bye y'all in our best Southern and West Virginian accent. Sayonara, you can just fake it. So 1, 2, 3. Bye y'all.
Bye, y'all.